Hey, 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 SpeakEasy Podcast listeners. It's your host, Altovise, your voice manager. I unmute the voice of women who are ready to speak up about what has kept her silent for way too long. I'm excited. I'm so excited.
Do, 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 do.
I love being able to bring you voices and listen, stories and connections from all over who just resonate with what it is not only that we're trying to achieve, but now, let's be honest, some of the places that we really want to go in life and in business. With that being said, I'm excited about my guest for today. Hello, Stephanie. How are you?
Hi, Eloise. I'm good. I'm so excited too.
This is going to be a phenomenal episode. So,
Mm.
Stephanie, let the studio audience know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into today's topic.
Okay, I've had 101 different jobs and vocations along the path of my life. But for the past 35 years, I've been working directly with upstairs, learning to work with my intuition, learning to work with those working with me, learning to work with the language of life as it tries to help us. Nature's part, you know, nature looks after its own. We're part of nature, and nobody told us that. We were taught to push and shove and fight for what we need to occur. But sometimes that actually takes us against the grain. When we work with the language of life, we see a different symphony playing out. It's like it's like a well-rehearsed play, and we each should be in the right place at the right time to make the connections we need. And that's what I help people do for themselves.
Oh, that is such a great place to start because when we think about the language of life, when we think about language in general, we think about how there are so many different languages all over the world. So when you say language of life, give us like a foundation of what language of life means.
Well, the languages of the world only occurred because in the early days, people didn't connect. There were no connections. There were regions and areas. So people learned to communicate in their own way. And that's how the languages came up. But then gradually we all connected and we had to learn to speak each other's language. But life itself speaks to you through your intuition, through your higher knowing, through the smallest voice that comes into your head. And how often do we listen to that voice? Too often we think, oh, I had that thought, but I just carried on and I wish that I'd stopped. You know, hindsight is a wonderful thing. But the truth is that life operates on a delay system. It has to do that because if you think about how often we change our mind about what we want or what we need or the direction we're moving in, or other things come into play and throw us off track, if we all got what we needed at the time that we wanted it, life would be chaotic because very often we don't even want what we think it is that we do. But our own soul connects to life itself, which speaks to us. And the more in tune we are with the I am I, with the God mind, with the divine, with the higher universe, with our own intuition, which connects 24/7, that time delay shrinks. So we tend to get more of what we need on time because we're in the right place at the right time, reading the signals and signs and making the connections. A good example was many years ago, I wanted a healing center because after my awakening, I realized I could heal. And you know, anybody who has an awakening, you want to heal the world, you want to do the best you can for everyone, and that's how it goes. So I wanted a healing center, so I set out looking for a premises, but everywhere I went, I felt claustrophobic. It wasn't right. So I stopped. I was laying in the garden on a sunny day, and somebody rang the doorbell. I went to the door, there was no one there. But on the mat, the wind had blown a children's playing card, but it was not an ordinary deck. It was a magician and it had been under somebody's tire. So I picked it up and it was on my doorstep. And I thought, well, this is interesting. So anyway, I just went back into the garden and laid in the sun. And while I was laying there, the thought came in, why don't you just hire a room for a few hours on the day that you want? You haven't got the overheads, you bring the people in and you'll be doing what you need to do. And that's how simply life works with us. But often we miss those signals because we're so busy.
I love that you said that, because a lot of times it's either we're too busy or we've been kind of brought up in this mindset that you can't trust your gut. You can't, oh no, there has to be a reason behind things. There has to be a thought process. There has to be things that you can see and feel and touch. And it takes away from us saying, just sit in the moment and allow an idea to come to you. In the world system, we're chasing after something. And I think that's even when we think about the wording that we use: hustle, grind, everything is, I got to put in as much energy as I can, and it drains us.
But that's because you hit the nail on the head. You said that we were brought up this way. We've been indoctrinated with the best intentions of the world to expect and behave in a certain way. And what we've been doing through generations, we've been creating mini-me's. We've been teaching people what to watch out for, what to expect. And you know that the universe gives you what you expect, what you believe. So we've been creating our own obstacles without even knowing. So my books and my products and the way that I teach people, I help them to understand that everyone around you is on their own individual journey, here for their own reason, making the connections they are and doing what they're doing for their own reason. But in your life, you're on a different soul journey. So you chose those experiences to interact with them, to go overcome them, or sometimes, sometimes to see them playing out in other people's lives. So you know what to steer clear from, because very luckily, we don't only learn from the things we experience, we learn from the things that we see and expect and interpret. But there's a real reason that we're no further forward than we are. And the time is now. The time is now. People are being born more awake. Awakening is occurring all by itself. And if we don't at least, if we're not even open to the possibilities, then we'll be living life the hard way. It's the difference between buying a beautiful car that looks so lovely, but it's got the hardest suspension and it's the most terrible ride. So you feel every bump in the road. It looks lovely from the outside, but on the inside, it's like a bone shaker. Or you have another lovely car that has a beautiful soft suspension and you ride over every bump and you don't even feel it. And that is the route that life wants us to take. The route that we're awake and aware, that we're seeing and understanding everything that's going on around us, but we're processing it from a higher perspective, as opposed to being in the boxing ring and feeling every punch.
You made a great statement there that, there are those who are now being born with just a different understanding. They don't have the same setbacks that we've had, and they're questioning the status quo. They're going ahead and saying, well, why are we doing it this way? Well, what makes that the best way? Is it really the best way? And we see that in the new generation that's coming up, that literally it's like, oh my goodness, they just are, they are just going above and beyond. And even when I tell a lot of business owners, as they're putting their business in place and doing new things, sometimes you may need to go and talk to somebody that's younger. Go and, sit with somebody else, because that'll help you to dream again. That'll help you to kind of get out of that rugged space that we tend to find ourselves in.
But life is also very clever, because the purpose of life is, remember, each one of us, although we came here to do certain things, we also came here to have this story ourselves. And people forget their own story. They forget they're important. Or you're tingling all over, so we've hit the nail on the head. They forget that they're important, that they matter to the people around them. And sometimes we're so busy chasing the dream that we forget to live the life. Now, if life is there to provide us with everything that we think we want as we dream, it's only doing that so that we find our heaven on earth and Nevada here. But often the things we think we want aren't actually what we do want, because when we get them, they're not as we thought they would be. So what life is also doing is providing you with a load of tick boxes so that you can think and dream and move beyond what it was that you thought you wanted, so you no longer want it. Because if you're left in a state of wanting and your life ends, you can be standing in heaven saying, okay, God, so you gave me this wonderful life, but you never gave me this and I wanted that. How do I know my happiness wasn't there? So life gives us every opportunity to look under every stone to see if our happiness was there. And then we get to re-choose and re-choose and re-choose and re-choose. And I was thinking about this last night. You know, God doesn't ask us for anything. God gives us everything, but asks us for nothing other than our love and our happiness. Because in doing that, it's not about, I love you, Lord, I love you, God. It's not about that. When we are in a place of happiness, the energy we give out to life is purer, finer, better. That is our, excuse me, that is our gift. That is the legacy we leave behind. The energetic contribution that we produced while we were here on earth, that added to the whole program playing out, which determines whether we were an asset or a detriment. So it is like the skin of an onion. Even in our own lives, every single day, there's many different levels, many different layers, all playing out simultaneously. And unless you can see an angle or understand where something or someone is coming from, then you miss the purpose, and then you don't necessarily find or connect to not necessarily the answers you need. Sometimes you have to go through a situation that you thought you wanted to find out it wasn't quite what you wanted, to hit another trigger which will spin you off in a different direction. But you wouldn't have got that spin off had you have not gone through the first few steps in the first place, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. I love it. I love it. Speakeasy Podcast listeners, there's a couple reasons why this discussion is such a significant one. It's simply because I know in the beginning piece, there are certain things that people tell us that we should be focused on. There are things that people, want to sell to us and tell us that we need this for our business and we need that for our business. And we need to be doing different things. But the reality comes in is that sometimes what is popular is not what needs to be done. Sometimes you need to find out what's the specific plan for your journey, for your life, for your business. And it's not always going to fit into what everybody else has done. Matter of fact, when we think about it, the things that have been most successful were ideas that nobody else has tried, or they were an improvement on something.
Yeah, because we're entering the space of the hybrid. We've already spoken about how generations programmed each other to be mini me's of themselves, but nobody ever covered the middle ground. For instance, if you have an aggressive parent, you're either going to have an aggressive child that tries to match it, or you're going to have a submissive child that is scared to step up. Okay, so you've got already from one aggressive parent, you've got two types of personalities coming forward. And you have to remember that everybody here on earth is their own type of personality based on what they've been through. Now, we're very much in the generation of the hybrid. The world has stopped. Marketing doesn't work the way it used to. Adverts, we're so sick of people telling us what to do, even to the point as we're told, you have to wear a mask, you have to meet outside so the germs can blow away. Where is everybody's sense of general thinking, their own sense of knowing what's right and what's wrong? a lot of adverts, and people are talking to us like children. And as you said, telling us what we need to make us feel happy. Now the shops are starting to open in the UK. Everybody's saying, oh, come here, you need this, come and have this sale, and you need this. And people will be running to buy their things. But when they bring them home, it's a quick fix. They'll be happy for 5 or 10 minutes or a couple of weeks. And then the bills start to come and think, well, I shouldn't really have bought that. And I didn't really need that. And I've got 10 of that. So it's a quick fix. We're looking outwards when we should be looking inwards. And each one of us is a soul in our own right. Each one of us is here today as an opportunity for life itself to take life forward, to know life and what it's about. And there's a whole reason that things that we used to do are not working. It's because we've gone past saturation point. And each one of us is an answer. And you know what? Wouldn't you rather go back home to those pearly gates, knowing that you did your best, but you got it completely wrong, but at least you tried and did your best, than having not tried at all? You know, everybody is a trailblazer, but you can't stand in the world and think, right, I'm a trailblazer. What can I trailblaze at? It is born from understanding life around you, what you've been through and why you chose your life, why you chose your parents, why you chose your siblings, why you choose your friends, why you cry at the things you do, why do you like what you do, how others push your buttons. When you know yourself so strong, then you start to see a different level of life playing out. And at that point, you start to piece together information differently, and it's like two old parts of the same rug, and you're the stitching that stitches them together. You know, we made a terrible mistake when we went into Iraq, because you know, the war started too quickly. The soldiers' boots were rotting because of the heat. They weren't equipped, and they had to make a quick decision. We learned our lesson from Iraq, but when Syria happened, we were too scared to go forward because we didn't want to repeat Iraq. So what we're doing is we're trying not to step on anybody's toes while doing the right thing. But God doesn't need any of that. God just needs you to be present in the moment, seeing what needs to be done and putting it in place. So we are the stitching, the hybrid that makes the old things better. The whole reason I said about Iraq was they brought it to the ground, so there was nothing to build the infrastructure on. And what came forward was almost worse than what was there originally, even though what was there originally was very bad. You can't tear the old down and then just build the new. Sometimes you have to make the old better, because the old is the stepping stones that takes you into the new, as it keeps the foundations in place, but you add to it and you make it better. You make things work better. You know, we have to stop reinventing the wheel and use what we have around us more effectively.
That was some wise words. Use what you have more effectively. I appreciate you saying that. Oh my goodness, SpeakEasy Podcast listeners, this has been an amazing episode. I know you've gotten some gems. I know some of you are probably like trying to write down notes. It's okay. Press pause, go back, rewind, go ahead, write down the notes, share out the episode, because it's all about you being able to elevate in life and in business. And trust and believe, I know we would prefer that we could do one without the other, but in all actuality, you need both. You most definitely need both. With that being said, Stephanie, let them know how they can connect with you online and how they can find out more about what you do.
Okay, you can reach me through my website, www.stephaniejking.com. So I'm based in the UK. So my website is my name. They can email me at stephanie@stephaniejking.com, and I'll get the emails. My books and products are on there, which work individually with each user to bring in the higher energies that are waiting to work with them. We've done with the old life. The only thing that's left is more of the same. What's waiting is our own awakening. So intuition and insight and the easier but better but higher part of life to come in to work with us as we work with it. You know, God gave us everything, gave us this life, this planet to live on, to be within. It gave us everything. And what are we doing with that? You know, we have superseded the God force because God can't step in. God can't negate anything, because then it takes away the very thing which is free will. God can't do that.
I love it. I love it. Speakeasy listeners, you know that this is all for you, because without the Speakeasy Podcast listeners, there would be no Speakeasy Podcast. We appreciate each and every one of your feedback. We appreciate the reviews. I see the new reviews that have been coming in. And guess what, guys? If you have any questions, by all means, reach out, www.iamunmuted.com. We would love to hear back from you. With that being said, we appreciate you. And until next time, don't forget to press it out. See ya.